It is February 13th, 2023. It is 6 p.m. for a common council meeting. Media has been notified. Agenda has been posted. Clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt.
Here.
Stephen Jopek.
Here.
Eileen Daniel.
Here.
Karen Mikulowski. Gerald Anderson. Here. All right. I got that. Thomas Barnett.
Here.
Tom Kelly.
Here.
Leanne Felton.
Here.
Chris Hannes.
Here. Okay, let's move on to number 3, which is please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to public comment. I have Ms. Sackett from the chamber.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give you a quick update since I was here of some of the stuff that the chamber is doing. Going into 2023, we're kind of having a vision of new year, new chamber, and we're doing a lot of updates. Last November, our tourism contract with RTMC was signed for another 3 years, and we have unveiled the tourism website. We have unveiled the new sports marketing website, and we will soon unveil the new RhinelanderChamber.com website. We have some new events and programs that we're going to be unveiling this year, including the Up North Community Expo in March and a business education series. And we're doing a lot of new initiatives. We are currently leading a child care Dream Up supply grant, a DEIA grant, and other projects. So I just wanted to kind of share that we're trying to elevate what we're doing this coming year, and I hope that in the future I can give you more updates.
Thank you. Tom Giroux, City Forester.
Tom Giroux, 604 Reich Street and City Forester. The tree board, for all you people out there on Hodag TV and in the audience, the tree board is excited to be offering a 50% discount for a tree planted in your front yard. Many of the boulevards have been eliminated in street projects, and so there's no room for a city tree. And so we wanted to partner with the citizens because both the homeowner will benefit from having a tree in their front yard, as well as getting more shade on our streets and sidewalks. So it's an exciting program, 50% discount on a bare root tree from a local nursery, and will help with technical assistance. And we want to make sure we get the right tree in the right place. Poorly located tree is not a good thing, and so I'll be working with the homeowners to do that, and it's going to be an exciting year. We'll be planting over 100 trees in the city of Rhinelander on city property, so it's going to be a fun time. The street crew and city parks will be very busy. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse Urquhart for Olson Lane.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jesse Urquhart. I'm speaking on behalf of my dad, who lived at 3446 Olson Lane, about the special assessment on the Olson Lane project. First, I'd like to thank the council for postponing their vote on the charge to the residents last week until further information could be found. We do appreciate your time and your consideration on this matter. I would like to start by answering a question from the last meeting. The question was, what was the catalyst for this project? A new homeowner bought the lot adjacent to AutoZone and built a home on it. The lot at that time did not have a septic tank, private well, or city utilities. The city voted during the October 25th, 2021 meeting to proceed with this project to get Olson Lane access to those utilities. Moving on to the project itself, the original estimated assessment cost was $449,000. The final assessment cost came to $348,000, a savings of $101,000. The homeowner's individual cost or individual charge did drop from $27,000 in the initial quote to $24,900 in the final bill, a savings of $2,700 per lot. This brought the residents' responsibility for the project to $174,000. The project was completed 23% under budget, and the residents only saw a total reduction in cost of $19,000. The city saw the other $82,000. Discussing the special assessment in general, I am personally unaware of the process of how that would get added to a city road construction project in the first place. Is there a set list of guidelines or things that have to be met for the special assessment to be tagged onto a project? Compared to other recent and upcoming projects, Olson Lane does appear to be a smaller construction project in general. Are we interested to know if any of these upcoming projects also have special assessments attached to them? Last meeting, there was a mention that the homeowners could go to the DNR to possibly qualify for a grant to help offset the cost of this project. My second question is, did the city attempt to get any grants themselves or any additional funding for this project, or was the decision to put the special assessment on the residents one of the first options that was looked at? Lastly, I have a bill from the city of Rhinelander billing to my dad's property. This bill is for the stormwater runoff utility that, according to a city ordinance, all city residents must pay. Olson Lane does not have any storm drains for any water runoff to go into. Even now, after almost $450,000 in construction costs, there is still no drainage system on that road present. The residents of Olson Lane are paying for a utility that they don't use and that doesn't apply to their piece of land. My point is that since 2012, these people have paid this utility because it was the city ordinance. These are not bad people or people that have a bone to pick with anyone. We are good, hard-working people. Some of them, like my dad, were veterans who do what is asked of them by their country in their city. I'm not here to point fingers or assign blame for this project, the lack of communication, or any other part of it. This is a mess that we all find ourselves in. I understand the city has a responsibility to provide its citizens with clean water and sewer systems. We also understand that the city ordinance might not always immediately benefit us. But just because it is a city ordinance doesn't automatically make it the right thing to do. Olson Lane was an abnormality. It was within the city limits with no city water or city hookup. In this unique situation, some city ordinances may need to be laxed to better meet with the intent of the ordinance rather than the black and white of it. All we want is to be treated fairly. The special assessment of $24,908 with the $10,000 fee to hook up to the city water and sewer is not fair to the residents of Olson Lane, and it isn't right. I'm again asking the council to consider removing the burden of this project away from the 6 residents of Olson Lane. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Urquhart?
My name's Mary Urquhart, and I'm speaking on behalf of Jeff, who has passed away, my ex-husband, but I'm here to support my children, and all I really need to say is that my children are in their 30s. My oldest grandchild is 6 years old. I have 6 grandchildren between the age of 1 and 6, and my children have all they can do to pay their own house mortgages and food costs and the bills with the high price of everything nowadays. And this extra burden for my children to pay this $37,000 is going to be a very big hardship and a bankrupt on my children. And I wish you would reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Not seeing. Moving on to number 5, which is mayor's comments. For bullet point A, the Rhinelander Fire Department is going to do a meet and greet on February 28th, starting at 4 p.m. at the fire station. This is a piggyback off of a couple weeks ago, the Public Works Director had a similar meeting. We're looking every month to do something like this. So after fire department goes, our new city administrator will have around, our police chief as well as myself, and then the clerk in between elections. So the goal of this is to be more transparent and to let the public speak and ask questions about how government is ran outside of a forum like this. Moving on to B, which is Lights at Northwoods donation. Mr. Bill Freudenberg.
Hello, my name is Bill Freudenberg. I represent the Lights in Northwoods, a great event every year that we put on as a group. We had a meeting last Thursday, and we presented an envelope tonight to the mayor and to Randy Myram, Jeremy Biolo, myself, and the mayor. And we as a group would just like to thank the city and all the department heads for their support for this event. And thank you. We can't say enough about it. We appreciate your support. We appreciate your help. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then my last comment would be, due to lack of need, we would be removing item 10, which is closed session, from the agenda, as well as 8J, which is appointment to room tax committee, unless anyone has any objections. Okay, not seeing none. Moving on to 6. So this would be an ordinance if we choose to adopt. It went to planning commission. At our last meeting, it was talked about there for, I believe, 2 different meetings. This is to come in compliance with state statute and code. This mainly affects the electrical permit process as well as what we have. I don't know if, okay, does anyone have any questions? Mr. Anderson?
Is anybody here from inspections to talk about that? They were the ones that brought it to planning, I think.
True, I don't believe so. The closest thing would be our fire chief, who's been part of it, but not directly involved with it.
Okay, well, I had a number of questions about what was in the packet. First place, it's a kind of a bare bones thing, the way it's written. It needs to have an ordaining or clause at the beginning there. Probably should say, whereas the Planning Commission recommended this. It just seems like a really important thing that we shouldn't rush into very quickly.
Would you like to entertain to table it to maybe next meeting where we could have Tom Wadick in
Well,
attendance?
I think what we really need is to have like a work session to get fuller explanation of it and see if we really want to get involved more in this kind of thing. It seems like there are a lot of issues between what we've already got in the code and what we'd be adding. Which one governs, it's probably not ours, but if that's not what we want, we need to think about that. And I had questions about the retroactivity of one of the parts there, going back to 1980. So I have a lot more questions, but it seems like there ought to be an opportunity for all of us to ask questions.
I don't know if you want to go first or let Brian speak.
I'll let Brian.
Yep.
So just for edification here, this is just bringing us in line with the state standards. So when we transferred all our codes in the ordinance and we adopted these other ordinances or these other codes that are in here, these SPSs, we failed to bring those two codes over as well. So that's all we're doing is, for whatever reason, those two weren't part of the original adoption when we transferred over. So we're just trying to catch up with the state request for us to fall in line with that to get those adopted. So we follow those. It's just the state electrical code. So we follow the state code that's already set for electrical. And that'll be permitting and inspections and everything. And then the campers. it's nothing new. It's nothing that we haven't done in the past. It's nothing extraordinary or anything like that. It's just, we're just following in line with something that's already written, that's already there. We're just adapting it into our actual ordinance to say that we follow it. It's a formality.
Mr. Barnett?
I had several questions about it myself, and I reached out to Dave personally, and we had a nice long discussion, and he explained it very well to me, and it's just coming up to state level qualifications for ordinances. It's not like we're rewriting a complete ordinance. We're not coming up with a new model of anything. It's just, it's being done statewide. It's not being done here. Should be done here. So I'm going to make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-1, amending 513 state codes adopted.
Holt, second.
Motion and second, and, well, there's already a motion and second on the floor. Mr. Anderson?
Well, I think it at least deserves a second reading. I would move to table it at least till the next meeting.
Did not hear a second for the table. Unfortunately, table dies. Any other discussion? Not seeing none. Clerk, please take the roll call.
You do have to wait 3 whole seconds for that.
Oh,
Just want to point out.
sorry, it's been a very long day. So, 1, 2, Mr. Jopek?
No, not on the second. He was asking for more discussion. I thought, right?
Okay, so, okay. So,
Oh, yeah, so I'm looking to clarify it. So Gerald, are you looking to table, or are you looking to just go through the normal procedure with the second reading?
If you're going to have a second reading, I'm okay with at the moment.
okay, so let's clarify. Clerk, technically, we didn't waive the second reading, correct? So at this point, we have a motion on the floor for the first reading only, which brings it back at our next council meeting to discuss and then possibly adopt. At that point, Mr. Anderson moved for a table. I did not hear anything. It doesn't look like anyone wants to second that table. Now we're at discussion of the original motion. Cool.
Mr. Chairman. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll bring it back for our next meeting. That's the preferable methodology and we'll have a written explanation that will be given to all of the council members and made available, probably coinciding with what Tom was told, and we'll make sure it's in writing so that the public knows. Is that sufficient, Gerald?
Sounds good at this point, yeah.
Yeah, because I will tell you that if you don't adopt this, you're really putting homeowners at risk, because they're going to have houses that don't necessarily come up to code. Now, I can tell you that we're enforcing the code because we're not going to put homeowners at risk. And that's what the city's doing right now. But you deserve an explanation. We'll make sure you get one in writing.
Mr. Barnett?
I would just like to make a note that we know this stuff is coming up. We talked about it at the last meeting. I would encourage, if there's this many questions about something like this, that you can reach out to Dave, like I did, and talk to him. He'll answer any question you got about it. And, decisions like this that should be pretty easy can be done pretty quickly if we just have better communication with our people out there. I have a question, I call somebody and I ask. So I would just invite everyone else to do the same when there's questions like that.
Thank you. Anyone else for discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski. Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes to move it to our next council meeting for the final vote. Moving on to 7, I defer to Steve, our attorney, regarding the unfinished business of Olson Lane Special Assessment.
Yes, at the last council meeting, you asked that we go out and research this, and I did some rather extensive research. In fact, even found a piece of it today inadvertently here of a historical action that this council had taken. You can defer an assessment. There's nothing that would prevent that from being done. In other words, what we can do is we can take the assessments, and if truly the property owners are not going to avail themselves of the use of the sanitary sewer and the water, we can basically leave those in, and if then they in the future want the service, then they can be billed at that time. It's called a deferred assessment. Now, deferred assessments, and this is perfectly legal under Wisconsin law, deferred assessments can come in two forms. Deferred assessments can be divided into components of what they call an availability assessment. In other words, that's the cost of putting it in the road and saying, okay, now it's available to you. The second would be what we call the connection assessment. That's where we make it available to you and you finally connect. Now, many people prefer to break it into those two components because it takes this, we'll use the number $24,000 figure, and it means that you could pay an assessment now for, well, let's presumably say half of that amount, so we'll say $12,000. You could be paying that over the next 10 years or whatever this council elects to do as far as the assessment. And then if you do connect, then your fee at connection would be less, and again, you could pay that over a period of time. Or you could defer the entire assessment until such time as you hook up the sewer and the water to the system. The thing that you have to recognize is you do have an ordinance. The ordinance has been on the book for a long time that says that anytime you have sewer and water within your community that's available to someone, they're required to hook up. So we're going to have to amend that ordinance as well as this assessment ordinance. That's why I didn't walk in here today with an ordinance saying, here, vote on this, because I'd rather hear from you what you want me to do, but I did do the research. I will also tell you that we did discover that we've done this in the past. There was a property in the Driscoll Street area, and that assessment was actually deferred. So that if that is ever developed, this is the area behind the Kmart, if that was ever developed, there's a deferred assessment waiting for the developer to pay the minute they would ask for sewer and water. So it's up to you, but I wanted you to know that I did do the research, and this is available to you as an alternative to assessing everything right now. So I'm looking for direction from the council. Do you want to look at bifurcating the assessment? Do you want a total deferral? Would you let me know, and I'll come back with the proposed ordinance.
Mr. Holt?
Yeah. I as I said last council meeting, I would be in favor of a total deferred until such time as service is hooked up. To have a septic system and a well in close proximity within the city limits, it's going to need to be tested at some point in the future. These things have a lifespan. Those facilities would have to be upgraded, and the cost of that, it sounds like, would be fairly comparable to hooking up to city sewer and water. So having the cost be assessed at the time seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, and just so there's no misunderstanding, if your system did fail or if your well was declared to be not safe, you can't fix it. You've got to hook up. There's no question about that.
Mr. Barnett?
Yeah, at the last meeting, I had put out a statement shortly after the meeting, and I just wanted to clarify something that I made a statement that we as a council at that time were either unaware or misunderstood what we were voting on, and that was incorrect after going back and looking 2 years ago to that meeting. A lot has happened between now and then. I made a mistake, and I apologize for making that statement. With that being said, after reading the policy and why we voted the way we did, I understand why we voted yes on it. But hearing the hardships that are coming from that, I would agree with David Holt. I think David is very wise in suggesting a total deferment until those have to be hooked up because of ordinance. So I'm with David on this, and I think that's what we should do.
Ms. Daniel?
Do we have record that the homeowners were informed of this ahead of time? Because that's what I'm finding most disturbing is that, I mean, 2 years ago we voted on this, and yet I'm hearing from homeowners that they never received advance notice of it, that they didn't know about the construction until it actually had started, those sorts of things. So I'm guessing there must be some sort of paper trail.
Yes, we've already checked, and there is a paper trail. They were informed of it. They did have knowledge of it. And you heard it tonight. You heard it tonight when he said our original estimate was $29,000.
Okay.
But it turned out to only be $24,000.
Okay.
Now, I would say that communications could have been clearer. I would say that communications could have been like, this is how it's going to impact you, rather than simply a bigger sheet of paper that you had to interpret. But we also did indicate that the council was part of the agenda. We did talk about it. We were able to identify, I think it's 3 different meetings that we were able to identify. But that's all, you know, that's the water that's gone over the dam. And we're now looking at how do we, you know, change the procedure. And that's what I'm asking your permission to do, is to write an ordinance that will cover not only this matter, but we also have to clean up our ordinances, because right now it would say they have to hook up. So we have to put a deferral. And like I said, I found out that we did defer, even though we have an ordinances, we can't defer. So if you give me permission, I'm going to go ahead and clean everything up.
My thing's still on, but I would then recommend that we might make an ordinance. I think the current ordinance as it stands states that they would receive a letter so far in advance and then blah, 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 blah. Why don't we put something in there if you're going to defer it, right? Are we deferring the requirement for them to hook up until their sewer and or well fails?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's what's going to be specifically outlined in the ordinance.
That's correct. It'll be specifically outlined, and I can also tell you that the new administrator and myself and Austin have discussed, if it comes down to it, we'll knock on the door and hand people the notice.
I think that's a perfectly acceptable, and I think too, I I heard from at least one other person who mentioned that they didn't know about it until the construction started. Now, it's possible that's a person who moved in after the original letter was sent out, that sort of thing. I would say to put in that ordinance as well that 30 days before construction starts, they would also get some sort of knock on the door or a letter or something to the resident so that they understand when construction is going to start and how it's going to affect them. I mean, if they're going to have difficulty getting to and from their properties, it's fair for them to have that sort of advance notice.
Whatever the council wants, obviously we'll put in the ordinance.
Mr. Anderson, I don't know if you still had.
Yeah, I'm in favor of some kind of deferment. I guess I wonder if a partial deferment might make more sense for some people if it gives them a chance to pay it over a longer period of time.
They would have that opportunity to pay over a longer period of time, starting with the date that they would say, we're going to, connect. It's still, you as a council would have a right at that point to give them a period of time to pay. Remembering there will be an interest charge on that, but right now, whatever the number is, which is approximately $24,900, that'd be frozen until such time. And then when they did hook up, if they paid the $24,900, there'd be no interest charges. But if they decide to defer it over 10 years, there would be an interest charge.
The other thing I would note is that sometimes it's not so much the choice of the owner. If they go to sell the property and the buyer's lender requires the person to hook in, they may get, it may come up sooner than they think.
Yeah, and the other thing you should realize is once we do this, there will be a notice filed on these properties so that somebody doesn't come along later on saying, I had no notice when I bought this property.
Yeah.
It will be a public record for the properties where there is a deferment. Frankly, that's how we found out about Driscoll. It's because somebody was looking at some property and we said, whoa, here's an assessment, and that was recorded of record. And that's what this would be too.
Just one more question is, how does this affect the city finances in terms of, if we've already paid for all this, but we're going to defer getting repaid. How does that affect our budget in the future, for instance?
So I could speak to what we have already paid out. So we weren't budgeting anything for an income for this from this 2023 budget. So if there was any funds received, it would be a surplus in that category. As you guys know from the Timber Drive project, the water utility budget is getting rather tight. So I mean, this would be something if future homeowners or properties want water utilities, you know, we have to take a good look of how we're gonna fund that in the future. So, Mr. Jopek, I don't know if you still have.
Just asking for clarification and making sure I'm on the same page. So the properties on Olson Lane have, or for all intents and purposes, like grandfathered into the ordinance. That's why they're on septic currently, and they've not been on utilities prior to this because they're within city limits.
I would tell you there was not sewer and water in Olson Lane, so they couldn't have hooked up to city sewer and water because there was nothing there to hook up to. Now it's there, so what we're saying is, since it's there, if in the future you are going to change your sewer and water control system, you're going to have to hook up.
Okay. So it, someday, 10 years from now, whatever, at that day, they could, they'll have to pay to meet city ordinance code, all those standards.
Yeah, the same code that everybody in the city
Yeah,
has.
yeah. No, I'm speaking this only to be, you know, crystal clear so that we're understanding it.
Yes,
So-
absolutely. You're very
So
clear.
if something fails, that's going to happen no matter what in the future. And the cost, as Mr. Holt said, is comparable to having brand new septic in anyways, correct?
Oh, yeah, well, it
Something
depends
along
on
those
what went wrong with your septic.
Yeah,
But yeah, it
right.
certainly could be.
Right. Okay.
And just to give you some more background knowledge, we do have a couple other streets in town that do not have current city utilities that are on a septic and well. So this is a topic that may come up in the next 5-10 years as additional projects. A couple of questions I have for you, Steve. So how does the special assessment like this affect them if they sell their property? Is it done, I'm assuming, through the title company recorded? That
Yeah,
way the new buyer knows?
Right, there'd be a recording of the city's assessment would be in the, recorded with the Register of Deeds office. Somebody buying the property and their title policy, they would see that there has been a special assessment assessed against the property, but it's been deferred until the conditions that we've just discussed.
Okay, so if a property were to change hands, the new buyer, assuming the title company did the proper work, would know about this prior to closing?
Absolutely.
Okay, how does this work if someone has a mortgage on a property with a special assessment? Is anyone in a unique spot where the mortgage might have surpassed the value of the property where they could be in default of their mortgage?
No,
potentially?
it wouldn't affect your mortgage at all because your mortgage, in fact, your mortgage company would be taking subject to it. Not, it wouldn't be, you know, in other words, if ABC Bank foreclosed, they'll take subject to the special assessment. We have that power, the police power allows that.
Okay, and then the last one, if we defer this to whenever they hook up, could they, in theory, come in tomorrow and make anywhere from a $50 payment to pay in full if they choose?
Absolutely, you could hook up any time between when this council votes until.
No, not hook up, just make payments.
Oh, yeah, that's why I suggested that we create the ability of bifurcating, but you've got a special assessment, you could come and pay on it. I don't know how we'd account for that. That might be very difficult, wherever Wendy is. I don't know, but that would take some trickery to figure out how to.
But in theory, it's doable if
In
someone
theory,
chose. Okay. So it sounds like, oh, Mr. Jopek.
So on that repayment issue, there's possibility for flexibility in the sense of one person could be paying a month to month, and I understand that that could get a little messy for Wendy. Sorry, Wendy. But so one family decides that they want to go ahead and start chipping away at that now, and another family just opts to deal with it 10 years down the line. That would be optional, or are we talking an all or nothing? Like all need to do one way or the other way?
I will attempt to write it in such a way that would allow them to pay on an assessment before they actually, but I got a sneaking feeling nobody's gonna pay until they actually are hooking up, but I'll try to write it that way. If I can't, I'm gonna come here next meeting and tell you I can't write it that way, that you either pay when you hook up or you put it in your piggy bank at home so that you've got the money when it comes time, rather than using the city as your bank. But that just, again, I haven't written it up, Steve, so I can't really give you the detail yet. But the concept, I think is very difficult, and I'd want to talk to Wendy too, before I locked into that.
Ms. Daniel?
I'd like to give Mr. Sorensen the opportunity to change his verbiage, since this is all on record, because he said financial trickery. And since we are on the record, since we are being broadcast, would you like to rephrase that?
Yeah, the problem is you have certain requirements within the city and how you report income and how you have to allocate income. And if you don't have a category that you can put this income into, that you'd have to create a category. I don't know how we would create that category. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. As much as I know about municipal finance, and that's quite a bit, I give lectures on it, I've never seen a category for a pre-assessment fund where somebody was putting in money before that was actually due. Because, for example, and this probably will never happen, but somebody could have a lot on this property, one of these properties, and it's no building on it. They may never hook up, and they may never put an assessment on. That's why I'm saying, so when I say financial, I just don't know under municipal finance rules how you would create a fund that would take money that isn't necessarily ever going to be paid for that. And you understand what I'm trying to say?
Oh, I fully understand what you're saying, sir. I just wanted to allow you to change your verbiage from trickery to perhaps, I don't know, say voodoo or witchcraft. I know I just made it worse.
Let's use the word legality.
There you go.
I want to do it legally.
There you go. There's no trickery involved in this, just because we're on the record.
There's no smoke.
There's no smoke and mirrors, nothing. Thank you.
Refer to Wendy, our financial director.
So I've been waiting to hear what your final decision is before I start researching how we're going to record this. But I can tell you that we've had an example with like the Lincoln Street sidewalk assessment, but that was something that council had assessed and the people owed at that time. So we had a separate fund, we calculated the interest, and then we took the annual payment, and if they preferred not to pay us directly, we assessed it on their tax bill. If you don't assess it and expect them to pay it right away, and we collected money, it would go into an unearned revenue account, and that would just build. But I would definitely check with the auditors once you find out what your final details are. It doesn't make sense for me to research a cloud of ideas.
Okay, Ms. Anderson?
Just one question came out of the mention a few minutes ago about a vacant lot that might never hook up. My understanding just from driving up and down the street is there aren't any vacant lots. But if there is, I assume that if someone built a house there now, they would be required to hook up immediately.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think we have clear from the body that they want you to move forward to make this ordinance. The kind of the second topic tonight would be, in this case, when you make this ordinance, what percentage, what dollar amount, and what length of time for the assessment would be, I believe. Mr. Kelly? Nope. So just to let you know, sir, usually at this point we're past public comment, so, but I would allow it this time. True, but I mean, usually this is, but I'll let you this time.
Yeah, my name's Richard Ottman. I'm one of the owners on Olson Street. Or Olson Lane, I should say. We were never given any information about this going on. until the day that it started. And then we still didn't know that we were going to end up paying for anything. I had actually decided to hook up already to the septic and water. I was only going to hook up to water, and then you sent out the letter saying that we had to hook up within 365 days. So I had already done that. I already had a contract to get hooked up. And now I find out that we have to pay for that plus hook up the $10,000. I already have $10,000 into it right now because of this. I can't afford another $24,000 even 10 years, 20 years down the road. I'm on a fixed income. I'm a disabled vet, and I can't afford that. If we would have known about this prior to, we could have came in here and said what we needed to say before you even voted on it. But we never got any letter, even though you had in your minutes that we were supposed to get a letter 10 days prior to the meeting for having this actually voted on, having it done. And we never got anything. Like I said, we didn't find out about it until they came in with the machines and started doing that. And we didn't find out about us having to pay for it until after it was done, and we got the letter saying that we owed $27,000 per lot, which I think that's very unfair, and it's actually backhanded or down. It hit us upside the head. There's all kinds of people that are retired on fixed incomes that aren't going to be able to afford this, even 20 years down the road. So, I mean, it's all one thing that this is just, I don't know, going behind our backs. That's what it was doing this. You did all the stuff behind our backs until it came time for us to pay for something that we never even knew we had to pay for. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Okay. So, I don't know if we want to discuss any of the terms of that, or do we want to hold that for a different meeting, or how do we want to move on that side of this topic?
Why don't we just wait till we get the ordinance and we'll talk about it then?
Ordinance first. Okay. Moving on to 8A, which is discuss and/or approve meeting minutes from Common Council 123.
Holt, I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the Rhinelander Common Council on 1/23/23.
Daniel, second.
Any discussion? Not seen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those abstain? All those that vote? Oh, God. Sorry, it's been a long day for me. All those voting against? Not seeing. Motion passes. Moving on to B, which is discuss and/or approve resolution 2022-4 with Oneida County Airport. We have our airport director to give us some background knowledge.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Matthew Leitner. I'm the director of the Rhinelander Oneida County Airport. I know you have a lot on your plate, so I'm going to expedite. This is essentially the same petition that we brought before you in 2019 and 2021, and I want to say it's a good thing, but administratively it's arguably otherwise. We keep getting a lot of money from bipartisan infrastructure and from the state and from all, entities that support the airport. So what we've been able to wrangle, if you will, is $10 million for our electrical infrastructure, and this is going to supplant an electrical infrastructure that dates back to 1977 and 1978. So new lighting, new conduit, new regulators, transformers, and a new electrical vault. So the state asked us to change the verbiage in the petition to reflect that, which we did. And that's the quick one. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. And these are good, just for your knowledge, these are good for 6 years. So we put every conceivable thing we can on it, but we didn't foresee $10 million coming our way to supplant 45-year-old infrastructure, electrical infrastructure.
Mr. Anderson?
So what we're asked to support is an application just for the electrical work and not for the other things that were listed on the,
For the other things as well, so it'll be a renewal of those things, and it's a petition for federal and state funding to support those projects. So it'll be city property and county property, but the funds will come 95%, the state and the federal government.
and the other 5%?
Local share, so the airport itself.
Assuming it's built into your budget already?
Correct. Yep.
Do you know if the county, since they're half owner, has already approved?
They have. The administration committee approved it this morning. We had our public hearing back in December, and then the airport authority approved it in late January.
Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, the admin committee, of which I am a member, passed it this morning to send on to the county board next Tuesday, so.
Correct.
We're in sync here.
We'll entertain a motion of any kind.
Holt, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2022-4, ratification of Rhinelander, Oneida County Airport Commission petition for state airport development aid.
Anderson, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Karen Mikulowski, David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 8C, discuss and/or approve bills and claims in the amount of $3,259,951.33.
Holt, I will make a motion to approve the bills and claims in the amount of $3,259,951.33.
Daniel, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Karen Mikulowski, Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 8D, discuss and/or approve task order number 28 Oneida Avenue project. I'm assuming this is Mark or possibly Randy as well. All, okay, Mark. What you got, Mark?
I'll take it. So this item, along with item F, are for engineering contracts for the Oneida area project. This particular item, item D, is for non-rural development engineering services. We split this project up into two categories, one for rural development, which is paying for the storm sewer, the sanitary sewer, and a lot of the streets. And then we have the non-rural development stuff, which is water main and some streets. That comes out to about a 75-25 mix. This engineering contract in this task order number 28 is for the non-rural development water main engineering services. This is for construction administration, which is the public meetings, pre-construction meetings, progress meetings, construction staking, processing of peer requests, dealing with the contractors, and administration of the funding for this. So this contract would include construction administration and resident inspection.
Any, Ms. Daniel?
Did this go out for bid? I mean, did we hear from other engineering firms as to what their cost would be for the same services?
I would have to refer to Steve since it was started before my time.
No.
No.
Should all projects such as this go out for bid ahead of time?
Service projects don't have to go out for bids, only projects for actual materials or for equipment.
That seems odd.
What's the statute?
Okay.
I mean, you certainly can vote against it.
I'm wondering, were any other engineering firms contacted for bids?
I'd have to go find Zach probably to ask.
The reason I'm asking is it seems like every city contract goes to Town and Country, and I'm sure there are other engineering firms who would like a shot at a city contract. I think it's only fair to open that up to other entities.
Well, you're going to find out that not every contract goes to Town and Country, I think, tonight, right, Randy? Yeah.
Oh, well, well, then it's new.
True.
What I'm trying to say is, when we talk about this administratively, we only take those contracts where Town and Country has a decided advantage of knowledge and materials and say, well, what are you gonna charge us to do this? And if it's not within what it should cost, then we're gonna say no. And when it's a new project, yes, we do look at other places, and you're gonna hear about that later. So I don't want the public to think we just turn every contract over to Town and Country, but it's, you know, they have data and materials that make it a lot less expensive for them to do things that other people, we know that. I mean, that just, you've been in this business as long as some of us have, we just know that. So, no, there's no, you know, and again, if you as a council don't feel comfortable, vote no, and then we can, you know, we basically can put it out, but I would guess in this case, you're not gonna see it any cheaper.
Would entertain any direction of any kind.
Holt, I'll make a motion to approve task order number 28 for Oneida County Avenue project.
Anderson, second.
Any other discussion? Not seeing, since it's not a dollar amount, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Moving on to 8E, which is discuss and/or approve Musson Brothers' bid for Oneida project. Mark?
This was the analysis of the bids. We opened bids for the Oneida Avenue project on January 23rd. Bids came in very favorable under our engineer's estimate and below the estimate provided to the funding agencies for the funding that the city has received. There were 2 bidders on this. We had multiple contractors and suppliers pull bids on it, but only 2 bidders. That was Musson's and Dorner. Musson was a low bidder at $6,750,597.20. We would recommend award of contract. That would include the base bid, the alternate bid, which includes the reconstruction of Courtney Street from Pelham to Lincoln, and the supplemental items. And just as a reminder, the supplementals are for items that may come up during construction that we want to establish a price for, which is supplemental trench backfill, meaning if we run into organic material in the trench, we have to pull it out, replace it with granule material, we have a price for that. Rock, if we hit rock, we have a price established for that, or excavation below subgrade, just to shore up the road structure. So we always put those supplemental items out there. You may not need them during construction, or you may need more than the quantity we have there, but we have that to establish the prices so we don't have to negotiate it during construction. So we would recommend award of the base bid, the alternate, and the supplemental if it's within the city budget.
And then what can you speak to as far as grants and loans we have acquired for this project?
Right now you have about 5.8 million in loans and grants with rural development, and 3.3 million in loans and grants in safe drinking water. And there's another $1 million grant for Clean Water Fund, which is sanitary sewer. Right now, with bid prices that came in, the Clean Water Fund would not be necessary, but it allows you some flexibility in expanding the project if the city chooses to do that. If you were to close on that Clean Water Fund project, you could expand that project if you so desire.
And I know what most of these, now granted, every grant and loan is different. What would be the local share, or does the loan cover the local grant share, so to speak?
What we have preliminary right now, Mr. Mayor, is your local share would be under $200,000.
And I'm assuming, actually I could speak for Wendy, I know we have over 200,000 in our PrEP fund, which could cover that local share. Mr. Anderson?
Is this the project that we were buying pipe and other things for a few months ago?
That's correct.
And how does that figure into this overall cost here?
So that was $650,000 for the water main materials. So if you look at this, this is just what was bid. This does not include the water main materials. So if you were to add that in, you're looking at a total project cost of $7.4 million and change. But the materials, the water main materials, that will get paid for under safe drinking water. So once those materials are purchased by the city, you'll be reimbursed by safe drinking water.
And that was all included in the original estimate?
Correct, correct. Even including those material costs, this bid is under the original estimate.
And in what streets does this impact?
This impacts Oneida Avenue from Barnes to Frederick, Conroe from Courtney to Oneida, Blackburn from Courtney to Anderson, Anderson from Pelham to Oneida, King from Stevens to Oneida, and Pelham from Stevens to King.
What about the Courtney Street?
And Courtney.
Up to where? From where to
That's
where?
from Pelham to Lincoln.
So it's probably one of the more massive projects we have done since Stevens Street, I would assume.
Correct.
Any, Mr. Jopek?
Dare I ask if there's any special assessments we need to be aware of?
No, but I do believe we're going to be going out to all those property owners to see if they want to replace the lateral, since most of the sewage pipe in this area is, what, 60-plus years old, if not older?
Yeah, and we do that on all these big projects. We'll ask homeowners while the contractor's out there if they'd like to replace their sewer or water lateral. And if the city contractor is open to doing that, we'll just put them in contact with the contractor.
True. Another part to this project that's not directly connected to tonight's bids would be on Oneida. There will be a couple dozen trees removed because they're in the right of way and they're in the boulevard where we're digging for new sidewalk and curb and utilities. The tree commission got awarded a grant, which they're looking for this fall or next spring to replace many of those trees. But that will be something that changes the streetscape, just based on losing a lot of mature oak trees and maple trees on that block. So I would entertain any direction from this body. Mr. Anderson?
I move a word of the contract for the United project for the base bid, the alternate and the supplemental in the amount of, you'll have to tell me the number.
$6,750,597.20.
Exactly.
And I'll
Holt,
second.
I'll second.
Okay, that's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Gary Mikulowski. Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Motion approved. Moving to 8F, discuss and/or approve amendment number 4 to Oneida Avenue project. Mark?
Much like item D, this is for the engineering contracts for construction administration and resident inspection for the rural development portion of the Oneida Avenue project.
Don't know if that's you trying to get my attention, Mr. Barnett, or just your Chromebook.
Chromebook made
Okay.
weird noise. Okay, I'm good.
Any questions or discussion on this topic? Would entertain a direction of any kind?
I'm sorry, I was clarifying something with my neighbor. We're on G, correct?
No, F.
We're on F. Oh, excuse me. Okay, yeah, I will make a motion to approve amendment number 4 for the Oneida Avenue project.
Is there a second?
Daniel, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Moving on to 8G, which is discuss and/or approve Resolution 2023-3, budget amending number 2022-1. I refer to Wendy, our financial director, to give us some insight on this.
So I asked all the department heads to send through their 2020 invoices by January 31st. And then I did a reconciliation where I looked to see how the expenses came in compared to what the budgeted amounts were. And for the general fund, we are within budget, although we do have a couple of straggler invoices coming in that we have to post to 22, but we're still within budget as far as I can tell. And on this budget amendment, I can answer any questions, but I put a brief description by each one as to what the amendment is for.
Daniel, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-3, Budget Amendment Number 2022-1.
Holt, second.
Any discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Karen Mikulowski.
Motion passes. Moving on to 8H, discuss and/or approve for MSA Engineering Investigation of Development of a Well 9. Mr. Randy, so with this project, since this is a new project we're starting for exploring for a new well location, we went out to bid for design companies, and who submitted applications, and which one do you pick and why?
Well, I did, a little over a month ago, reach out to a number of engineering firms requesting their qualifications for what experience they have on well drilling, what experience they have on PFAS, what experience they have on acquiring alternative funding. The two that stand out the most were local firms, both very qualified. One is MSA, and the other is Town and Country. We, as everyone knows, have a very strong relationship with Town and Country. I think Rhinelander has a bit of an asset here. However, although both are very qualified, I believe the scales are slightly tipped in favor of MSA. They, in my opinion, have a bit of a deeper candidate or professionals, engineers, electricians, and such. They also have what I think is very important for Rhinelander is a soil scientist and a water scientist. This is something that's going to be very valuable to us. They have a specialist who focuses solely on acquiring alternative funding. This too is going to be very important to us. This is going to be a very expensive project for us. We have the potential to underwrite most of it through different grants if we can acquire them. And then also MSA, by the way, that is who I'm recommending to you. MSA has already started developing a water treatment facility in Adams County. This is experience that could be also very valuable to us. We are going to focus very hard on finding a well of pure water with no contaminants, but we might need an alternative for a treatment facility with this well. Once this well is constructed, we will then focus on existing wells 7 and 8 and how we can remediate that. So that is why I'm very interested in acquiring MSA services. And I recommend to the council that we enter into an agreement with them to start our preliminary work for finding the right location, for designing the right facility, for helping us get funding, and then putting this out for bid.
Mr. Holt.
I will approve retainment of services for MSA with MSA Engineering for investigation and development of well number 9 location as presented.
Daniel, second that motion.
Any discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski, Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Tom Kelly, Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 8I, discuss and/or approve waiving fees of the Rhinelander Chamber of Commerce for the following events. So this year, due to a construction project on Oneida, I believe, and if I'm wrong, please interrupt me, that the car show is going to be moving to our downtown, and then the art fair will be moving to Hodag Park for this year. Hodag Heritage Days will remain in Pioneer Park for this year. If that sounds right, Mr. Barnett?
I think everybody on the council knows my position on the whole fee schedule for events that bring in lots of tourists and money into the city, and then in turn nickel and diming the actual people that are putting it on. So I would say I'd be in full 100% in favor of waiving these fees, because what they do is bring in much more than a few $100s to the city that really doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, make up a whole lot. I think the events bring in a lot more than that, not only financially for the city itself, but also for the small businesses and the residents. So I make a motion to waive the fees for Hodag Heritage Days, Art Fair on the Hodag Park, and the car show on Brown Street.
So just to clarify before we have a second, are you looking to fee all fees or the fees that can be waived? Because on page 55 of your packet, you know, like there's some picnic license and stuff like that.
Picnic licenses have historically had to have been paid. I mean, even the fair does that. But for these events, the new fees that have been added onto the fee schedule.
What about the deposits?
For
page 55, just for then we're clear of what we're
Right.
waiving or not.
We can pay
Yeah, I would
the
include
deposits if you don't want to approve those. The deposits are something we can pay.
Leave the deposits out of it then if they want to pay those, but the other fees that I would recommend waiving for sure.
So waiving all fees but the $10 picnic license is, okay. Do you want to make that like as a official
Yeah,
motion?
I thought I did, but yeah, I make a motion to waive all fees for those 3 events besides the picnic license fee.
Okay, is there a second?
Holt, I'll second that motion.
Okay, any Mr. Anderson?
Have they paid these fees in the past?
I would have to refer to our clerk.
I mean, I was only here for 1 year, so I'll refer to her for historic.
We have only ever had to pay for the picnic license fees in the past or deposits for shelters. All other fees have usually been waived. I just approached for this time because it was under the new structure. But typically, as long as I've been at the chamber, we have not had to pay the fees.
But I'm just concerned with the precedent we're setting here. Everybody's going to want the fees waived. I assume we have fees for a reason, because there are costs to the city involved with these things, and I'm sure they are beneficial as well, but I just hate to see this become the general rule unless we're ready to eliminate the fee schedule entirely. I voted for the one we had last time or time before because it was a startup. It was something new that we wanted to encourage. These are continuing events. I don't see why we shouldn't charge appropriate fees.
Ms. Daniel?
I would just point out to my colleague, Mr. Anderson, that there is precedent already for the city waiving fees for the chamber. simply because these are large events that do bring in a large number of people to our community. It's a little different than, you know, the Jones family reunion that uses the shelter and they have to put a deposit down and then they trash the shelter and then we keep their deposit. Or they have to pay the $100 shelter fee. What that usually does is by charging somebody a shelter fee for them to use it, they are staking a claim on it so that somebody can't just come in and set up camp there before they get there. And because Hodag Heritage Days, Art Fair at Hodag, well, it's Art Fair on the courthouse lawn, used to be, and the car show on Brown Street, they're having to move them. So I think because the new fee schedule with the park, I think because it's moving from the courthouse where there wouldn't have been a fee to Hodag Park where there is now currently a fee, that's why we're waiving it. Does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I figured.
Mr. Barnett?
I would also like to add that Alderperson Daniel hit the nail on the head. The precipice has already been there. The fees have always historically been waived for events like this. As far as I know, the city has not gone bankrupt during that time. So having those fees instilled is just a way to nickel and dime more out of great events that bring in so much tourism that we desperately need here. It's ridiculous to put that on the backs of these events that are trying to bring in tourism into the city. And if we're going to start, again, not allowing people to even come and ask for the fees to be waived, I think that's a bit ridiculous, especially when the precedent has already been set years ago, for many, many years, and the city's still here and it still has a budget. I think they'll be okay.
Mr. Anderson?
I'm happy to hear we're not going bankrupt, but I still think if we're going to charge fees, we ought to charge fees. If we're not, we ought to eliminate these fees. But there is, if the thing is being moved from one location to, from the courthouse where they don't pay a fee to a public place in Rhinelander where the city has some responsibility for it, then there ought to be a fee.
Mr. Barnett?
I did write a resolution to waive the fees from here on out, but you guys voted me down.
And Mr. Anderson, actually I'll speak to the mayor because I can't speak to my council members directly. The reason they're moving from downtown courthouse is because Oneida Street's going to be under construction. So it's they're kind of being forced out by the city because we're doing the construction. So, you know, then saying on top of it, you know, plus you have to pay the fees now is, yeah.
True. On the plus side, next year, Oneida Street will be a beautiful street for this activity. Mr. Jopek?
Are you saying Oneida Street is not a beautiful street right now, Mr. Rand?
It has many depths to this event, it adds. Mr. Jopek?
Just clarifying, we are still expecting them to pay that shelter deposit that will be returned to them after the event.
Technically, the motion that was made was to waive all fees minus the two $10 picnic permits. Is the motion on the floor with a second?
So I'm definitely not one to crash the party, and I totally am in line with what Tom is, Alderman Barnett is where he's at. To me, from a planning perspective, I think the shelter deposits are reasonable in the sense that they are returned to the entity, and it ensures that enough quality, I don't want to say barricading, but quality staffing is there to make sure that city property is not misused or mishandled. I'm not out to, have extra fees or anything added on, because I'm certain that the Chamber of Commerce and these activities are geared towards improving life in the Northwoods, in Rhinelander, and it benefits the public. It's a greater good. But I do think that the shelter deposit is just a way to make sure that our buildings and our infrastructure that is there is not harmed. And I know they wouldn't, but it's just to make sure that, quality staffing, those kind of things are there to make sure that's taken care of.
As a way of clarification, the motion was to waive the fees. It wasn't to waive the deposits. The fees and deposits are two separate things, so the motion that's on the floor would not waive the deposit.
Thanks for the clarification. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, not seeing other discussion. Since it's a dollar amount, clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski, Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Nay.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Motion passes. Since J has been removed, we're moving on to 9. Would entertain to accept the monthly reports from departments.
I will make a motion to accept the monthly reports from departments as presented.
Daniel second.
Any discussion? Not seeing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain. Monthly reports accepted. Since 10 has been removed and 11, moving on to 12, which is future agenda items as stated in the packet. Anything anyone would like to add? Mr. Barnett?
I'd like to add in a discussion on how we can bring the city into more ADA compliancy rather than just the bare minimum that it's at right now.
Okay. Any information particular you want us to have prepared for that?
ADA compliant playgrounds, better handicap parking up and down our city streets. Those are the two that come off the top of my head right now, but I'm sure I can add more.
Oh, true. Anything else to add for future agenda items? Okay. Not seeing. It is 7:16, meeting adjourned.